Hey guys, in this video we'll be continuing with the video series with for Python, the continuation of that video series. So we'll be going over keyword arguments with strings in this case, and then we'll be doing global variables. So I'm in pycharm again. So we'll just start here. So here I'll just say def main. We'll say first name points to input. We'll say enter your first name. And here we'll say last name points to input. Enter your last name. And here we'll say your name reversed is. Let's say backwards. That's what we said last time in the other video. So we'll say your name backwards is. So this is the same as the other video, as you guys can see. It's the other code if you guys watch that video. But this time we're going to be using keyword arguments, or basically parameters where you enter the value in the function name. So here we'll say in the function definition where we actually put the value as well. So here we'll say print your name, or your name backwards. So here we'll call get name backwards, whatever. So we'll pass last here. So we're going to say that it has to actually take. So when we call a verse name, we're actually going to pass it last name here. Oh, sorry, we could say here, we can say last points to last name, comma, first points to first name. As we said last time, the names have to be first and last in the actual definition. So here, so they have to match the same value. They have to match the same variable name, or else the Python interpreter will get confused. So here we'll say def get name backwards. And then here we'll say it takes a last. It takes a first and a last. And here we'll say we'll print a last first, same idea. And at the end we'll call main to start the code. So here we'll take that comment out. So here we're saying, okay, well, we have a last variable which we're going to pass to the get name backwards function. So we're going to say last points to last name, first points to first name, that we're going to get input from the keyboard or the user, the mobile device, whatever. So we're going to say, okay, well, last points to last name, first points to first name. Then we'll say, okay, well, we want to define get name backwards. That's going to be here. So in this case, we're saying, okay, well, we're passing it last name. It has to be that parameter. So we're going to pass it the value last name. In this case, it's kind of different because we're not saying last equals to like a name here, like this, right? That's what we did last time. But here in this case, we're saying, okay, well, last points to last name, first points to first name. We're saying, okay, well, first and last have to be the exact same names in this case as the actual parameters here in get name backwards. Last has to be the exact same name here in the formal parameters for get name backwards. The definition, the names have to be the same. So last has to be the same and first has to be the same. That is because here we're putting an equal sign. We're saying, okay, well, this is a different way we can do it. We can pass strings like this, but in this case we want to keep the names the same for some reason. Whatever reason the reason may be, this is what we want to do. The names have to be the same because we have an equal sign here and here. Therefore, we're not just passing them like this, which we could do that. It's the same thing. Then this color is going to turn white instead of red. But if we put an equal sign here, that means the Python interpreter is saying, okay, well, you're going to pass the exact same name to the actual parameters in the get name backwards definition, in the function definition, because we're putting an equal sign here. Right there, right? See that equal sign? And here. And it's not just like last, like I just showed you, but it's last equals last name, or points to last name. So in this case, since we have an equal sign here, then in the function definition get name backwards, we have to have the names the same. So we're going to pass first here and then last, and then here we're going to print them backwards. So you can switch them up. You can have them in any order you want. As you can see, we're printing a different we're printing the order backwards here compared to here, and then again we're switching them again. So you can do that. So we can print that out. Oh, sorry, we can run that. Enter your first name. My name's Code. My last name's Bunnies. So your name backwards is Bunnies Code. So there you go. We'll move on to global variables now. So we've used global variables a couple times. So we'll go over constants as well. So global variables are basically accessible to all functions in a program file. So that's all we really need to say for that. Excuse me. So here we can have just an easy example. So we have, we'll do a few examples here. So we have one, this first one's kind of easy. So we just have, doesn't have a main in it. Sorry, just moving the mic. So we have, okay, so we have a global here, my val, or just we say val points to 10, or just say some number. So here we say, so we have that, it's a global variable. Global variable, and we'll say, okay, we want to create a function named def get val, like that. And we're going to say, okay, we want to print. We can print here just val. We can print the global. So notice how we're referencing that val, which is outside the function here. Right. So we're printing the global variable. And here we're calling get val. So when I run this, we got whatever that is, 10 mil. So here we have val points to 10 mil. It's a global variable. And here we're defining a function def get val. And we're saying, okay, here we want to print val, which is global. So we're just printing the global variable. And then here we're calling the function which is going to print it, basically. It's going to call this function here, get val, which is, we've done function calls before, so function calls is just going to print this, since it's the only line in that statement. val gets printed. So here we could do def main, call get val here. Here we could say call main. Same idea. So here we're saying, okay, we have a global variable here, 10 mil. We're defining a main function here. It's calling get val. In get val, you know what happens with get val. And we're calling main. Exact same thing. We just nested we have a main. We included a main function in Python. It's good to include a main. Other languages have a main. You have to have a main in other languages. It's like it has to have a main or it just doesn't work. So here we have, so the Python interpreter is more lenient. You don't need a main, but in this case we put one. And we call the main at the bottom. Usually the main gets called itself in other languages. Like if you just have a def main here, it just starts running the code in main. So you don't even need this here. Pretend that's commented out. Well, I'll just comment it out. In other languages, just to tell you guys if you're interested. So when you have in other languages, you have a main function that's automatic, or a main method they call it in other languages. For example, Java or in C they call it functions as well. When the code starts, the compiler automatically starts executing main. You don't have to call main. That's why Python's a bit different. You have to call main. So there you go. We'll just move on now to a harder example. Not a super hard example, but something a little bit more. Actually, I don't even think this one is hard. Let's see what we have here. No, this one isn't actually that long, so we'll just go over it anyways. Actually, this is pretty much the same thing that I just showed you guys here. All that's happening is, again, in this other code, which I don't think we really need to waste time doing, is that we have a global variable at the top. We create a main. In that main, we say, okay, well, we call a function as we did here that we define underneath main, and it just references the global variable. So that's like 100% the exact same thing we just did. We don't really need to do that. So you can have in Python you can also have global constants. So apparently you're not supposed to use global variables. I mean, you can use them. Sometimes you need to use them, so I don't see why you shouldn't. It is permissible to use global constants, global variables. I'd say use what you have. I mean, if you need it, use it. Maybe try not to have too many. Try to put them basically, the best thing to do is make them local if you can. That's like the best way to put it. If you have a variable that's global, make them local if you can. If you can't, then just keep it global. But if you can make them local, it's better because it makes them more private, so other functions can't modify it. It's less hackable, I guess. But just try to make them local if you can, I guess. I mean, it's not really gonna get hacked, but you know, if you have another function could get into it, but just try to make them local if you can, I guess. Keep them as private as possible. So although you should try to avoid global variables, it is possible to use global constants. A global constant is a global name that references a value that cannot be changed. So again, there's no basically you can have global constants. I don't think there is a global or there isn't a global or a constant keyword in Python. So it says, although the Python language does not allow you to create true global constants, you can simulate them with global variables if you do not declare a global variable with a global keyword. Does Python have a global keyword? It does, okay. So let's see if we can find an example for that. So could we name this global then? Let's see what that. Well, don't worry, we'll go over the global keyword formally later on. What is it saying here? End of statement is expected. Okay, so we'll go over the global formally later on. So in this program, we'll create a global constant. But it's really just to create a global constant. We're just making the constant name pretty much uppercase. So the global keyword in Python, just on that note, allows us to modify the variable outside of the current scope. So we'll get into this later, into more advanced stuff. We'll do the basics first. We'll do a formal example later on. But in other words, we'll just go over the definition if you're just wondering what global is. So the global keyword in Python allows the user to modify a variable outside the current scope. It is used to create global variables in Python from a non-global scope inside a function. Okay, so I think I know where they're going with this. So basically, we could create a global. All right, I think I know where they're going with this. We could say we could have a global. So we have val here. So basically, global is like static. So if you know what static is, well, I guess let me rephrase that. Static in Java. Static in Java allows any function to access the variable. In C, basically there is no static. You can use extern in C. So extern allows any function to. It's the same thing as static basically, but there is a static in C, but it's completely opposite in Java. Static in C makes it private, so it's a little confusing. Each language has its own definition. So I'm not trying to confuse anyone too much here, but here we can say, well, we have a global. We can have like a global var here. Points to 10. Yeah, where's that? So we can have a global x actually, where we can have a global var, and then we can say, okay, well, we want var equals var. Actually, no. Let's say we could have var points to 10. I guess you can initialize them in the same. You have to declare it first, I guess. And then here we could say, so this is a declaration. Then we're saying, okay, well, var points to 10 is an int. Then here we can say, okay, well, we want var. Actually, no, it's not going to pick up the type. So we want to say basically we could say we call main here dot var. No. So main.var. I don't know if it'll let us do that. We can try. But here we're calling it before get val, so should probably put it there. So don't worry, we'll go over the global keyword more later on. So we'll just print this out here. Perhaps we can print main.var. So yeah, so that's pretty much what we can do with it. Don't worry about that. Like we'll go over it later on. I'll have to read the definition formally before I make the video and all that, so I don't confuse anyone. So basically, I use a dot. This is going to be a little bit advanced for what we've covered at this point. But basically, I created a global. You can create a global variable that in Python in a function. Name it global, which makes it global. You have to declare it first, I guess, and then we can call this function. So this variable is really global, but it's defined locally, but we're calling it global, which makes it global, like this val. But then here we printed val, and then which printed the global variable. And then here I said, okay, well I want to call the function main. I want to get into that function, access its variables. Then I want to say, okay, well, main has a global variable which we can access with a dot operator, which is this is going to be advanced. I'll have to go over this in the next, probably soon, coming up after functions, like other things. We'll get into them, more keywords and stuff. So basically, we're taking main, calling the dot operator, which is accessing var. So it's accessing the function main. It's saying, okay, I want to access main's variables, which is really basically global in this case. If it would have just typed var, then it would have just created a new local var, which wouldn't have been this var. But since I called main, then it's going to access what's in main's the main function's variables, which is in this case is going to access the var, which is global, because we made it global. We declared it to be global here. And we're saying, okay, we want to point that to a value which is 10 plus 1, which is now this var is really an int, but we're modifying it from here. So it's a little confusing. We'll get into it later. Then we're just printing it. So don't worry about that. Just a little taste of what we're going to learn. So later on we'll get into that stuff. So yeah, so if you guys like the video, you can like the video if you want, share the video with your friends, and you guys can subscribe to the channel if you'd like, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.